So welcome to the history and government lesson. We are going to look at the question that we did in the last exam, whereby the question was from the first topic in Form 1, Introduction to History and Government. So that is where we started that exam. So the first question, you are to identify the main sources or three sources of information in history and government. So in history, we have three main sources, and those sources are we have written, that's number one. Then we have unwritten, and the last one we have electronics. So under the written, we are going to, those are just the sources whereby the writers, they either they wrote them and they were kept in the museums, or you will find them in archives. So under the written, we have printed sources, we have Arabic writings, we have periplus of the Erythraean Sea, we have the geography of Ptolemy. So those are example of the written. So then under the unwritten, that's where we have a lot of work that we are going to do there. So under unwritten, we are going to look at we have the archaeology, or what others call they normally call it archaeology. That's where it came from. So that was just the study of the artifacts, or we can say the material culture of human being. We also have the linguistic. This one is just the scientific study of languages. We also have anthropology, what we call the study of the people, social organizations, customs, and cultural values. We also have the oral tradition, whereby the source of information was just kept in the minds of the human being. So we call it, we can say that was just a practice of handing down historical information by word of mouth. So that's where you are told the stories of what happened in those days or in the past. And the last one, we have the geology. This one is just the scientific study of the earth crust. So that one is also under the source under the unwritten. Then number three, remember that we are looking at the sources of information in history. So whereby I said the first one is written sources. I identified some of the examples there, and then I looked at the unwritten, and now I'm looking at the last source, which we call electronic source. This one just like microfilms. We have radio, audiovisual sources like TV or television. So that one you made it under electronics. Those are the machines. That is the question number one. So you have to identify the sources, and at least you give two or one example from each source, whereby say we have the written, and electronics. So those were 10 marks. So if you identify the source, you define and you give two examples from each, you are to get 3 marks from each. So those are 10. Then number two, you are to identify the importance of studying history and government. So you need to understand under that one you have the history, and we also have government. So those are you can just categorize them under the two subjects. But if you are asked to give the importance, you need to mix. So you can give two from both sides, the importance of history or government. So looking at that one, then we have another question that looks like that one. That is where you are to identify the importance of studying the government, but they are almost the same. So we have to look at the importance of studying the history and government there. The first one, we are able to identify or understand the culture of the people or where we came from. We call it the identity. So through the studying of history and government, we are able to understand where we came from. Number two, we can say that it is also a career subject, whereby as you can you can get a job or employed due to the studying of history and government, like as a teacher or as the public administrator. Another important there, we can say that we are able to understand the theories on origin of human being. Number two, we appreciate the experience of human beings in the past in order to understand the present. So we are able to change or understand what happened those days if we convert to the knowledge that we got from studying history and governments. So also we can say it inspired the nationalism by learning about past political developments. We also say that it prepares the student for career. That one I've already said. It increases our knowledge about past events. So these are just a direct explanation. You don't need to fumble. So the last one also you need to look at it acquires a sense of identity by telling us who we are and where we came from. So you have to give me 5. So and each scanning 2 marks. So those are 10 marks. Number 3, you state limitation of oral tradition as a source of historical information. So that one you understand that it's included in unwritten. So the first point there, you find that it's difficult to distinguish what is real and what is imagined, because you are studying something that you are not there. So it's going to be difficult to distinguish whether it is true or false. So we can say it's just an imagination, or you just imagine and you write what happened looking at the chronological events. Some information or facts may be forgotten or omitted. This one is just due to the memory of the human. So you need to understand that the information is kept in the human mind. So it's very easy to forget. And also, the informant may not give correct chronology of events, the order of what happened. For example, looking at the period where we had the agriculture in Mesopotamia, it's very difficult to identify how the agriculture was flourished from one step to another. So I find this very difficult. So it's also expensive method of getting information, because you need to go to the field to search for the information. And also the last one, it is time consuming. For you to get information, it's going to take a lot of time. So those are some of the limitation or disadvantages of oral tradition as a source of historical information. Question number 4, you give 5 advantage of written records. Written records. So that one you include under the source of the written source, whereby I gave some of the example there. I said we have the printed sources, we have the Arabic writing, Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, and the geography of Ptolemy. So those are some of the. Then let us look at the advantages. So this one, under the advantage number 1, we say that it is more accurate than oral source. Number 2, may be translated into different language because it's written. So we may translate into the language that we understand, or any community, because it is just written, compared to the oral tradition whereby the information is kept in the mind of a human being. It is less costly compared to those of anthropology or archaeology. This one it's less costly compared to those of anthropology and archaeology. Then the last one, you said that may be translated into different language. I've said that one. It's reliable and does not based on biasness, because what you are going to write, you are going to write based on the evidence that you find. So that you find that it is not biased. That is question number 4. The last question there, you state 5 importance of studying government. So that is the government. But the question number 2 there, we looked at the importance of studying the history and government. So you look at this question, you find that they have now split that one into 2. So if you look at some of the points that I highlighted there, you find that those points, some of them are also included in this importance of. For example, it's a career subject. That is like a teacher or teaching or a public administration. That one is one point there. So you find that this you must be able to identify the point that lies in that side of history and the one that lies in that side of government. So looking at that one direct, I say that through studying the government, we are able to understand how the government makes the laws and how those laws are applicable or that are applied. We also say that through the studying of the government, we are able to understand how the government raises the revenue and how it spends that revenue. We call it the government expenditure. So that one is also a point there. So number 3, we can say that we are able to understand how powers and responsibilities vested in the different organs of the government, like the judiciary, executive, and legislature. So we are able to know the function of those. For example, the judiciary, this one, the function of the judiciary is very simple. In fact, that the main function of judiciary is to make sure that it enforces the laws. It makes sure that those laws are not violated. If you violate, you are going to be punished according to the law. Legislature, you understand that when the parliament, so the main function is to make the laws, and executive, it implement that laws. So we are able to understand the powers of those organs of the government that have identified the judiciary, executive, and legislature. And through studying the government again, we are able to learn the democratic principles which govern most of the countries. So we are able to compare our country democracy and the democracy of other countries through the studying of this government. And also we are able to understand the duties and responsibilities of the citizens. You as a citizen or you as a leader, we are able to identify and understand your responsibility as a resident of that country. And also through the studying of government, we are able to learn how the conflict in society are resolved. So I think those are you have to identify the 5 statements or points so that you explain each, and each was carrying 2 marks. So those are 10 marks. So we have only 5 questions there. So that is the topic of introduction to history and government. Very simple topic. That's a Form 1 topic that you need to understand, and you should be able to answer the question from the same topic. And looking at that one, I don't think if we have the question there. So let me just wish you the best, and I welcome the teacher of the next subject. Have a nice day.